Welcome to the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast all about Transformers, and yes, Liam, occasionally other toy lines as well. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten.
Well done.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, you see? Just
Gold star.
keep it on script there. But tonight is about Transformers, Liam, so that's what we're going to talk about. And it's episode 91, which is really exciting. Last time we talked Transformers 1, and tonight we're talking Transformers 1, because why not, eh? There's more to say.
Yeah, and we've got a guest that is like up there.
Oh,
yeah.
Big guest.
Yes.
Yeah. This guy, I'm very excited to talk about. So we have Jason Scheier on tonight, who is the production designer for Transformers 1, which I think is going to be very exciting because I don't know about you guys, but I love the visuals of this film, and I can't wait to hear a bit about it.
Have you seen his sketchbook? He's got his sketchbook work on the pinned to the top of his Twitter, and it's just stunning line work that he does as well. But he's been posting stuff on Twitter, the artwork from the film and the visualization and the characters and all this stuff. It's great. It's so exciting, and he's an animator as well. So love that.
I know.
And he's called Jason.
This is the thing.
Jason, were you in animation by any chance, Jason?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Not anymore.
Jay, you've never
I
mentioned.
think we should start playing Jason Animation Bingo.
We should do, don't
It's
we?
like it's during the war, isn't it? It's like when I was in animation.
It's an animated Transformers film in my day. You know?
I'm waiting for Jason to become like his own GIF. I'm something of an animator myself, you know.
Exactly that.
Notice I never tell anyone
right.
the URL for my film. You know, we'll leave that. It is out there if someone wants to find it.
Working up to asking you one day.
Yeah,
so
totally.
This is going to get quite confusing because we've got two Jasons from animation, and I have seen that this chap is quite tall as well. So I don't know. I think he's also got a beard.
I know.
So it could get a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe we'll just swap you out. We'll have a spare. If ever we lose one, we have another.
Exactly.
You know?
It's not J Swags, it's J Switch.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of the film, we've all seen it again this weekend, haven't we? Like, because it's now actually out in the UK. And I can't believe the last time, like, two of us saw it was in June. And it's funny because,
mad,
like,
isn't it?
people listening will get the impression it's, like, quite a recent thing because the last episode we talked about having seen it. But, like, seeing it again this weekend, it was like seeing it for the first time all over again. It was amazing.
It was because when I'd seen it, and it was just that, like, early stuff was still getting finished off and it wasn't rendered completely and the post hadn't been done and stuff like that. The watch that I had this past weekend with my family was like proper emotional as I do. My son was well into it. He was visibly jumping and leaping from his chair.
How many times did you cry, Jason?
Twice. Twice. Honestly, so many moments. But yeah, tearing up at lots of bits. Just wonderful, really lovely. But there was so much more detail in it that I did feel was missing when we saw the early version, and it just had all these nice little subtleties in it.
I don't think it was, though. Watching it back, I thought that, but I think we were focused on seeing it for the first time, and having seen it, and sort of, the broad beats, you'd notice different things, and I think it just became more obvious, unless there was more stuff. But when we spoke to Josh, he said most of that stuff was done and it was mostly just the sound. But then I suppose there was so much time, they could have gone back and added stuff.
Yeah, there was that bit. I remember in the mines there was a bit that was not rendered.
There was
a sliding feet bit and stuff. But it was more just like, do you know what it was? And I did wonder about this, Liam, because it was the bits with Megatron, and just I didn't know if they added a few more kind of little sneers and a little eye twitches and elements to his animation early on. That a very good chance I just missed it, right? Because this time the D16 to Megatron changeover for me had more impact. Actually, it worked better for me this second watch.
Before we go any further, we should probably say
spoiler.
Right, there's going to be some spoilers probably in this chat, right? Like they may just fall out, So do be warned.
The D16 switch to Megatron certainly had an impact on my girlfriend who was watching it, and right at the start nudges me and goes, "Who's that guy?" And she goes, "Oh, wait, I know." And I'm thinking, oh, she's clocked. It's going to become Megatron. And she goes, "Yeah, I know. He's going to become Ratchet, isn't he?" And then all the way through, she's like, "Wait, is he going to become Ratchet?" And then it was like, and then a little bit later, there was like this moment where she like nudges me. She's like, "No." She's like, "I've got it." She's got it. She's like, "He's Bumblebee, isn't he? Is he Bumblebee?" And then she's like looking at me, questioning me.
Brilliant.
Oh my god!
But then Bumblebee appeared, and she looked at me and went, "So where's Ratchet?" And all the way through the film, she kept asking, like, "Have I missed Ratchet?" I'm like, how do you, what?
This is
I was
brilliant.
so worried about Ratchet.
And then right before the reveal, she went, "Oh, is he Megatron?" And then when it happened, she was like, "Oh," like really like shocked.
Penny drops.
It was amazing.
Love it.
Brilliant.
She just kept going, "It's the helmet. I recognise the helmet." And I'm like thinking, what are we talking about? But it was really fun watching it with somebody who's, she's seen the Transformers film, but isn't invested in Transformers at all. But she loved the film. And it was the moment when Megatron drops Prime. And she gasped really loudly. And, and all the way home, she was like, that moment is incredible. Like, really, really. Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah, for sure. I must admit, this was my first time watching it with, obviously, other than yourselves, people that are not Transformers fans completely in the same sense, because obviously I went to see it with my family. And, although 7-0 loves Transformers, it was interesting because this is a completely new story and a completely different setting to a lot of what he's used to. I mean, he's, watched lots of the cartoons and stuff previously, but I went in and I didn't say too much to him about it because I kind of wondered, is he going to realise who D16 is meant to be? Do you know what I mean? Because we'd seen one of the trailers to kind of get him excited, but not too much, you know what I mean, or whatever. And he was just happy to go and watch it. And I asked him afterwards, I was like, so did you know that it was going to be Megatron? And he said no. And I thought that was kind of what I wanted in a weird way. Like I thought it would be quite an interesting perspective to view the film, and I thought, it's quite interesting. He loved it. He found it quite intense. It's fair to say towards the end, like the last third. I think it got quite full on a couple of times, and that was a revelation for me as well because I must admit, having seen it a couple of times, it had not really occurred to me that it might be a little bit full on at times for him. Yeah. I just thought he would be fine with it, but actually, I think it was the fact that. It's not so much that it's not the violence or any of that. It's the emotion behind it all. It's the fact that you really care about the characters, and it's upsetting in that regard. It's upsetting what's happening to Optimus or Orion, and it's also upsetting what's happening to D16 in a way. It's like the fact that he's going through it and everything, and he was quite shaken up by the moment. Where Orion gets shot. He was quite like, oh. That I think it had quite an effect.
Well, we've all been there. For us, that was 1986, wasn't it? So, that moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think it'll be up there. Honestly, I think that's a lot of kids are going to see that and be like, "Oh, do you know what I mean?" Like it's the way it's done as well. It's not just the fact that, as I say, it's like, oh, it's Optimus Prime getting shot. It's not just that. It's the way that the emotion and everything builds to that moment, and seeing it in 3D as well, it was kind of like it really kind of draws you into the story.
Well, how was the 3D actually? Was that?
Well, it turns out that Lorenzo was right. It's
really?
It was Lorenzo who directly recommended to us about seeing it in 3D. I remember he was saying to us, "You've got to see it in 3D," and so I listened and took him up on that, and it was brilliant. Genuinely, like it. If you've only seen it in 2D, I would say it's worth another viewing.
Really?
Yeah.
Personally,
I'm definitely going to go see it again anyway. But
because one thing,
if you can see it in 3D, I would.
I did find on second watch that some of the sequences I was getting a wee bit overwhelmed on. I was kind of like, what's going on now? Just a little. It was all kind of like it was all a bit too much. The screen was bigger this time, right? It was a bit more in my face.
Right.
And I did wonder if the 3D would help with that, to differentiate the kind of background elements with the like an Iacon race and also on the train track bit when they go out to Cybertron, stuff like that. There was just some elements. But again, what Liam said earlier is that second watch.
Really? I was like, I loved it. I was like a child. I was like absorbing it all, like, give me it all, pour it in my face. I love this. It's great.
It was understanding. It was like kind of seeing the characters within the environment that sometimes I was kind of lost them a wee bit. I'm picking at the moment, but there was just a bit more of that. Not in the same way that Bayformers does it.
I tell you what I was definitely more aware of this time was the scoreboard, in the racetrack. I think because I'd seen the film and I noticed it before, but this time I think I focused on it more and I kept going, ooh, slingshot.
All the different Blur. It's when I remember seeing Blur.
It was Afterburner, and then it's the second I saw Afterburner, my eyes like fixated, going, "Come on, orange Tron bike! Come on, orange Tron bike! Somebody have done the orange Tron bike, please!" Because me, huge Technobots are like the coolest Transformers. So I was like, anything. And then Strafe was in there, mentioned.
I know, it was great.
Lightspeed popped up.
Yeah.
Blur,
They
Dead
were
End.
definitely on a bit of a Technobot theme.
Chromia wins.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Chromia who won?
It was
It was Chromia
that
that won, yeah.
I didn't catch the name, and then I saw the character's face, and I was like, it looks like Mirage, but it sounded like Chromia. I thought it sounded like Chromia.
Apparently, they changed the character. Apparently, it was going to be Mirage, I believe. I've seen
Oh.
this, that it was going to be Mirage, but they changed it, and it was made into Chromia.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm sure it may have been...
It works. It
may have been discussed why. That may be public information, I don't know.
The bit after that as well, Liam, that's the only bit where Ratchet gets any... He's not even in it, but he gets a mention at that point.
He
He's
gets
like
name
calling
checked.
Dr. Ratchet at that point as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
My girlfriend told me, was like, you should have seen my face the first time she went dead serious. She's like, I know, it's going to be Ratchet, isn't it? And I thought it was a joke. And I'm sat there like, side-eye like, what?
Brilliant.
You've seen these films, haven't you? Some of these films? It was the
So
Bumblebee
good.
part. I mean, she did have a glass of wine, so maybe I thought it was that. But then no, it was the serious nature of it. But she
How
loved
funny.
it. She particularly loved the music at the end, because when we saw it, there was no credits, so we didn't get the music.
no.
And I was
Credits were great as well.
stunned by that. There was a child just down the front who, for the whole credits, decided to start breakdancing. So that was a thing.
Love it.
He enjoyed it that much. The kids in the cinema all seemed to love the movie. And then I looked down, I was like, is that kid dancing? And then I was like, he disappeared. And I was like, I could see his legs. I was like, he's breakdancing.
How random.
Love
Enjoyed the film
So
that
good.
much. It inspired him. No, I must admit, I was kind of surprised to see that the post-credits was so far after like the full crawl,
Yeah.
like the whole title sequence. Because of course, when we first saw it, it was just right there because they hadn't finished the titles, or they hadn't done the titles, I don't think. So it was just literally like you just got I think something came up, didn't it, during that viewing, saying that
Credits
the
will
titles
go here, or
yeah,
unfinished
credits
or something
here
like
or
that.
something. Yeah, basically like insert credits or something.
I wish all movies
And,
did that now.
Yeah,
I wish I saw all movies slightly before.
Well, I had the hardest time convincing my lot to sit still through the credits because I kept going, there's more coming, there's more, it's going to happen, don't worry. And like my wife was like, I'm going to the loo. Do you know what I mean? So trying to convince my son to just like sit. And a couple of times he was even like, but why do we have to sit through all of this? And I was like, I know, buddy, but it will be worth it.
Because all these
trust
people
me.
worked on it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, appreciate these people.
Exactly.
it was the reverse for me. My girlfriend was the one who was like, shall we stay and watch the credits? Because I was like, we can go. But she's like, I know you want to. Shall we stay? It wasn't like she was desperately keen. It was more like she was like, we'll stay because I know you really want to. I was like, we can go. She's like, no, we'll stay. And then she laughed a lot at the mid-credit sequence with Bumblebee
Yeah, it's good.
popping off the heads of Steve and Co.
And Atron, yeah.
But yeah, Sebastian was quite happy to sit and wait, and my partner and my mum and dad are very used to me making them wait, just in case I know somebody in the credits, which this time I did. There's also a game you can play, right? If you've got kids, me and my brother used to do this. If you see your first name, you get 2 points. If you see your surname, you get 5 points. And whoever gets the most, if you see your middle name, if you have one, you get 1 point. And whoever gets the most points wins. So you can just play that next time. Keep people engrossed.
You're gamifying film watching.
We did
Is
it.
that-
We did it when we were
that's what
kids.
you're doing.
That's because we're going back to when you had to watch credits.
To be fair, when Jason was a kid, it was all like abacuses and
No, I was going to say.
ball in a cup, wasn't it?
Black
on the
and
string
white. Now
and all
you
that.
sounded
Black
like
and
my
white
partner.
films.
It's
Yeah.
like, was it in colour? Was it in colour?
I must admit, though, I did get a slight thrill from sitting there. So it was yesterday that I watched the film with my
Same.
fam. And I got a slight thrill from the credits popping up. And this is going to sound so wanky, but hey, I'm going to go with it. I got a slight thrill from being like, met him,
Yeah,
and I'm about to meet him.
Totally,
Do you know what
me
I mean?
too.
Or like speak to him at least.
'Cause
Do
they
you know
were
what I
the
mean?
big
Like,
I did that to my girlfriend.
It
I was
was
like,
lovely.
that's the guy.
That's we're talking
That's
tomorrow.
the other guy.
Yeah, totally.
And she was like, are you going to do this all the way through the film?
Well, that was the bit that I've been going on about this for ages to my family, and that's when my dad turned around and went, "What? Have you seen this before?" And I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
Dad? I've literally been going on about this for months, you know." Oh
Yeah.
my goodness! Was
Oh,
like, I'll tell you
Brillis.
what. I've not told anyone this yet, though. But as I left the cinema, I don't know if you guys so I went to the View Cinema, and they have these big, massive backlit posters that they have for all the movies. And I went out, and the Transformers 1. There's a photo on Twitter of me and the family in front of it. Sebastian's doing a run with Orion.
I've seen it,
in
yeah.
front, yeah.
It's a very wholesome photo, Jason. I loved it.
It was very lovely. I went to the staff and said, "What happens to that after the film's done?" And it's like, we normally just chuck them in the bin. And it's like, "Here's my number. Can you call me? I want that."
Ooh.
So fingers crossed. And then immediately Kelly, my partner, was like, "Where is that going?" Because it's huge.
Yeah, I was going to say,
absolutely
is
huge.
it not huge?
It's massive.
It's like a big quad poster or something.
It's a big, massive poster, yeah.
Sort of on a tangent to that, Jason. Back in 1986, when I saw Transformers the movie multiple times at the cinema, my mum, I really loved the poster. You know, the UK quad poster. It was on the wall.
Yeah.
And every time I walked past, I would look at it, and I really wanted it. And my mum said, "Oh, when you're done with it, can they have it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they obviously gave it to somebody else.
Oh, well, I am going to be phoning.
So don't let them do that, Jason.
I know,
Get in there.
Did your mum not write in and get you a box of Transformers sent or something like that? So
Big box of Transformers posters. No, alas. I think maybe that's what spurred the Weetabix incident. She was like, "Never again." Yeah.
People are unsure about this story, by the way. You can go back and listen to a previous Triple Takeover. It's all there.
Yeah.
Should we bring in our guest?
We absolutely should do. Well, it's the production designer from Transformers 1, as I say. His name is Jason Scheier. He's worked on all kinds of different films. He's got a huge background in animation. You can find him on IMDb, of course, and look him up. But he's worked on lots of films to do with, he worked on Ultraman Rising quite recently, which is an incredible film by itself as well. Kung Fu Panda, How to Train
Rise
Your
of the
Dragon, a lot of
Guardians.
those films. Rise of the Guardians.
The most underrated movie. It's a great movie. Go and watch it if you've never seen it.
Exactly. So definitely a very talented chap. And super knowledgeable as well. He's really, really good on Twitter. He's got a very good Twitter account, so you should check him out on there as well. And as you mentioned, he's been posting lots of gorgeous paintings and all kinds that were done for sort of the development of the look and feel of Transformers 1. So I'm very excited to chat to him. So let's go to that.
Transformers, transform their backs in the sky. We won't stand for defeat.
Right, well, it's our absolute pleasure to sit down for a bit of a chat with Jason, who is with us now. So thank you ever so much. I know we just said to you thank you, but of course now we've got to do kind of the official, we're live and recording thank you. So it's an absolute delight to have you on. I mean, I've been following you on Twitter and really enjoying a lot of your updates and things like this as well. You've been sharing some amazing concept artwork for the film and that kind of stuff, but it must be kind of a crazy time now that it's out. I know that you're quite busy, so how's it all going currently?
Well, first off, I just wanted to say thanks so much for all of you gentlemen for having me today on the podcast. I love what you're doing here with the podcast.
Thank you.
I actually got a chance to listen
nice. Thanks.
to the Lorenzo and Josh Cooley conversations, and
cool.
It's just, I'm honored to be here. So I just wanted to say that first. And then secondly, I've just been going through a whirlwind of emotions since the movie was released in the US and now in the UK and all over the rest of the world as well. It's been a roller coaster, really. And I think it's, we all know that we put our heart and our minds and our love into the film. And I can see the world is feeling it. They're seeing it. They're reacting to it. They're feeling it. Unfortunately, the box office isn't reflecting a lot of all the passion and love and energy into it. And so when I say roller coaster, that's us reacting to the box office.
Absolutely.
So I'm a little bit heartbroken to see it not getting the legs that it deserves, because I know this film will be a cult classic in the long run. But
a few people have said that, actually, that it might kind of, whether it finds its legs quite quickly on streaming or it sort of is a bit more of a long-term thing, that it should achieve cult classic, kind of status.
Let's all pray for that.
It's worth mentioning that all three of us have just gone and watched it again. So obviously we saw it as the preview
this weekend.
We had the chance to meet Lorenzo and Josh, which was amazing. But then we all went to see it
all the way back in June. That was
back in June we saw it first, and then that was the kind of that was the pre. Some of the bits weren't finished. It was and the stuff I want to talk to you about that, Jason, as well, because there was so many little lovely details that I kind of picked up on from a visual point of view. But the main thing I wanted to say was, so I've got an 11-year-old son. It's my mum's birthday coming up, so I took the entire Wagner family off to the cinema. So it was me, my partner Kelly, my son, mum and dad, and all of them absolutely loved it. And it is such. Some of them are Transformers fans, not so much. Some of the others, but that kind of the story of it, the character of it, everything, and the audience reaction. There was a lot of love in that cinema, and it really does deserve that as well. And I think it's going to be a long burn for Transformers 1 in my mind.
I think so.
It's that kind of film, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for saying that. My reaction to the film, I went with my crew. The first weekend we went to the historical Grauman Chinese Theater.
Yeah.
On Hollywood Boulevard. We were like, let's get the biggest IMAX we could find and go see it. There was nobody in the movie theater.
No.
Oh no.
And my editor, Lynn Hobson, came out at the door, and she's like, "Don't be sad.
Yeah.
Don't be sad. I'm going to take you in, and we're all going to sit together as a crew. We're going to watch it in this big, historical, beautiful theater." And to me, that was amazing. And at the very end, this fan came out of nowhere. And he ran in front of us, and he's like, "Did you guys work on the movie?"
Wow!
Yeah, we did. We're all crew. We're all family, And he gushed on the movie for a good 5-6 minutes, and it made it all worth it. There was nobody else in the theater. It was amazing.
Totally, that's it.
I mean, that is a kind of reaction that you can't buy in a way, is it? That, and I think it is going to have that, particularly for kind of some of the younger crowd and things as well. I mean, certainly, as Jason said, I saw it with. So I've got to call you J Swags, haven't I? So there's no.
You call me J Swags.
No confusion. Yeah, Jason. I've got to call you J. Yeah, okay. I must remember, otherwise it will get confusing. I will say, I discovered. Jason, actually, I hope you don't mind me saying, I noticed this is random tangent, but I noticed on IMDb that you're quite tall, I think it's fair to say. Aren't you?
I noticed that as
right?
well. Yeah, we're all good.
Because our Jason is quite tall as well. There's more and more parallels.
I'm average height. I'm average height. You guys are giants. Yeah. There's a difference.
So, I'm 6'5".
Oh, wow.
We're all about the same, basically. Once you're over 6'1", we're all tall, basically, aren't we? That was it.
Yeah. I just thought it was more and more Jason parallels coming along. I don't know. We've got two Jasons, animation, height.
Yeah. So my background's animation as well. That's the thing. So it's
exactly.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear more about that too, as well.
Yeah, we'll dig into that. Don't you worry.
Oh yes. Try and stop him. But it's so I took my son as J Swag said, and very clearly it made quite an impression on him, and it's been the same with every other parent that I've spoken to, and certainly the first kind of screening that I went to where there were kids in the audience, you could hear that kind of at so many moments and things that were going on, and I really think that, and I've said this as well, I said this to Josh, that I really think that in the way that we grew up with the 86 movie and it made that kind of impression on us, I think this will as well for this generation now. I honestly do believe that. And so in a weird way, I don't know, the 86 movie didn't perform as everybody would have wanted it to financially
but
as well.
But it became a touchstone of popular culture, didn't it? It's something that's remembered by everyone, and that's probably the reason that Transformers is still existing as successful as it is that movie living in the minds of children of that age, of our generation.
It's such a cornerstone of our fandom now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you want Transformers 1 to take 40 years, of course not. But, I think it will.
As long as it gets there.
I think it will find that other kind of life.
You're making a really amazing point, Sixo. The point being that we're carrying almost the weight of the 40 years of history onto this film. And that was something that we were, especially Josh, we're such fans of the entire Transformers universe that we wanted to do our due diligence from the very beginning to research as much as possible and look at as many other avenues and cornerstones that have became tentpole moments for the Transformers history, even including the Michael Bay films. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them. Just it's not my taste level. I do love what they've done. They're super fun. They know what they are. They're big, huge monster rock'em sock'em
popcorn
movies. Popcorn films, tentpole popcorn films. But we wanted to do something, and Josh and I talked very, very early on about creating its own lore and its own history, but in a way respecting everything else that came before it. And so I think it's really a love letter to all the fans that are out there that have grown up with Transformers like ourselves.
Absolutely think that comes across. The mere fact that you have, from my perspective, a lot of very old school fans, even people I will say that were not convinced by the trailers or whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? They were kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. Now are like, this is actually the best Transformers film. And I hear that opinion a lot. It's not just like one or two people. It's fairly uniformly consistent, I think, across the fandom,
Right.
that people are saying that. And I think
That's so great.
that's
Brilliant.
a payoff, if anything.
But
So
it achieves a rare balance, doesn't it, where it appeals to so many people, because there's a lot of references, but it's probably the most accessible Transformers movie ever made. Like, you could give that as an introduction to somebody who's never seen anything Transformers, and
That's
that
right.
will set them off. It's perfect entry point, but there's so much there for older fans as well, but none of it's like you have to understand it. It's all very much, it works within the film as it is. It's really
That's right.
beautifully done.
No, I love that you're saying that, and I know the three of you are just immense fans yourself, and so to hear you say that and reinforce it and make it resonate to me just makes me feel fulfilled as a filmmaker.
That's
and
good.
as a production designer too. I think for me, if I can get into a little bit of my inspirations,
please,
Please, that'd be great.
absolutely. That was very much on our list of questions. So
okay, great.
Go for
so
it.
Josh, the first thing I did was talk to Josh. I said, what do you dig about Transformers, and what is your? And he grew up. We're actually a year apart. So he grew up in the same exact 1980s era of Transformers, which we call Generation 1.
Yeah.
Because we watched the four seasons of the first series in the 80s and 84, and then we also watched the tentpole movie that came out, the 86 film.
Yeah.
And we loved all the design work of Floro Dairy, and there's just like this really unique sort of consistency in terms of the proportions and the way that the characters' faceplates were a little bit more simplified. And we were talking a lot with our lead character designer, ABC, Amy Beth Christensen, and her team at ILM about keeping it nostalgic and also allowing for the faceplates to feel more like a masterpiece toy. And
That's interesting.
when I look at masterpiece Transformers, to me that's like the sort of like the North Star for how they should look. It's like, hey, we've taken the 1980s designs from Floro Dairy. We've also looked at like the more contemporary stuff, and we made a baby out of it.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I love the like simplification, but under close inspection, there's like these really beautiful panel breakups and like greebles and little designs that are inside that make it feel functional and like it's grounded in reality. Totally. And so talking to Amy, she's like, how do we take the literacy of that, but also make it super duper functional? And then also looking at you guys, like the fans that really collect these toys, and saying thank you in a way to see them on the screen. And what I mean by that is that these characters, I know you've seen some of the studies online, they're 1-to-1, and they actually transform from biped to their like alt modes. And that's all thanks to Amy Beth Christensen, because she's an absolute geek when it comes to Transformers, way more than I am. And I learned so much from her in that process of just like reverse engineering from an alt mode back to biped and vice versa.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we have in mind to hit her up as well, because we would also love to have her on the pod.
Yeah, it'd be great to get a chat
at some point soon. So
get her. She's man, what a lovely human being beyond the designer.
Yeah,
just like all around like passionate about every single aspect of film and toy and cinema in general. Like as a person to just be inspired by, I definitely feel like you should talk to her. And even our art director, Gerald De Jesus, he was my kind of my co-pilot. We both piloted the ship together in terms of the visuals for the film. And I'll speak to that a little bit too. Like Jerry and I had worked together on another project before Transformers, and we developed this a really consistent shorthand for one another in discussing world building. And so he's really great at like the technical side and like breaking sets down. And I'm the big, like huge picture guy where I can do big, huge paintings and concept art and mood. And so as a production designer, you need to inspire your team. So, you try to get out there before they do. You do these rough sketches in Photoshop, then you do these big block out models in Maya, and you take those 3D assets and sets and you give them to your art department, and they break that stuff down.
Yeah.
And that's the way I approach it. It's this like, it's a world building, almost like that Tolkien level of thinking where you're like looking at everything from this like StarCraft view at like an isometric level. And I think like that's the most exciting thing for me about animation is everything needs to be designed. Nothing is free.
Yeah,
it's all fun to look at and sort of dissect and sort of like break down. So this was a world and a half for me to be inspired by, just because I grew up with all the films and the series as well.
But you built something so new from it, didn't you? Like it doesn't feel like the originals. It feels thematically very similar, but it feels like something new, like it breathes on its own. And it's really stunning to look at. And watching it again yesterday, I was so struck by seeing like the Iacon City underground as a cave city and stuff like that. It's so new and different, but at the same time, there are so many little familiar elements. It never feels like, it feels like something I haven't seen before, but it feels like something I also know. It's a really interesting line to what that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So there's a ton of stuff you hit on there to do with like my animation background, and my brain's just kicking in there with just like, when you're animating and you're just, I made my film as in art school, and you're doing everything, right? And then it changes when you start working as a team and you're world building that stuff. But I know from experience, there's so many decisions you have to make of like, what is going to go in the film, what isn't going in the film. So that, like, take us through, first of all, for everyone that's listening, about that process that you're doing, like where you start. And
sure.
Let's talk about like characters, for example, because one of the things I loved in the final render of the film was, like, you're talking that greebly parts of all the characters, and when Alita wakes up and she's got that lovely detailing on her eyelids and stuff, and then the smooth face and that in it, and I'm looking at that render of that face thinking, how is there no intersecting polygons and nerds going on in this in this model? It's just like,
that's all credit to ILM. One thing I will say is Industrial Light and Magic, they are literally magicians. They are literally wizards at what they do. And they were such partners on the film in the sense that their look development team and their modeling team and their asset team, they're so high level in terms of what, and also fans too. That was something that I was like blown away by, is even our like comp supervisor was like adding tears on Megatron, at the end of the movie to pay homage. And we didn't ask for that. And he would be like, oh, hey, by the way, what do you think of this? And I was like, hell yeah, dude, that's so sick. Or, like what you were saying about Alita's eyes.
Yeah.
Josh saw the first version of it, and it didn't hold up in the close-up. And we're like, hey, what do we do here? Let's have a talk with Look Dev. And they actually would crack open the file in those close-ups, and they would start adding more levels of detail as we got closer. And so we approached it kind of very similarly to like way you render something in like a video game, where when you're at a further distance, the level of detail sort of occludes out. Yeah. And then as you start to step into focal point and closer views, then we like up-resed. And what I love about that is it lets your eye focus. And, one of the things that I really care a lot about is focal point and making sure that the characters read against their backgrounds. And so making sure that, like, for example, if you have a main character in a set, at every single time that they're in the set, I don't want you to be looking at the walls behind them. I don't want you to be looking in the deep space. And so I create a stage around each character. And so every single frame in the movie, either myself or my team have done paint overs on it. Right. And usually there was me, because at the very end, the last 6 months of the movie, I was by myself. So we would get renders in from Industrial Light and Magic, from Fraser Churchill, my VFX supervisor's team. And I would paint over them and turn each frame into a painting, send it back to ILM, and they would match that 1-to-1.
Wow.
And it was so incredible. Their comp team and their lighting team and everybody put so much love and detail into each frame that it felt like a painting. And I was like, wow, like that looks better than my painting. This is like 10 times better now. And they would balance it in such a way where it was just mastery.
So this was the thing, right? Is that, and you actually, I went to see the film, and I was watching the first bit where Orion Pax has gone into the kind of archives and he's looking for things. And then I'm seeing the lighting that you used in that and the nods. And I was like, hang on a sec, this is prime colors that we've got going on here. And then I saw your tweet and you talked about that as well. And that level of Easter egg kind of, that just hit the geek in me, right? I was so lovely, but it added so much to just bring you right into the frame. And then in Cybertron and how you're doing that. So were you coming up with the kind of the lighting for the scene and then passing that back to ILM? Is that the process for that beginning sequence?
I love that you said that, because in animation, it's not like you're using we had a DP on this movie. That was Chris Batty, who did all the camera work with his team. But I controlled all the color and the light with my team.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so from a master plan view in animation, you come up with a visual script. It's called sort of like a color script. And Gerald de Jesus and I sat down very, very early days, and we went on like websites like Shot Deck and looked at films that have come before and said, hey, we want the lighting to look like this, but let's tweak that frame to look more like what we're trying to get for Transformers. And so for every sequence, I try to attach a color to a character. And so if a character is being introduced, I want to make sure that their color is coming through inside the set in some way, shape, or form.
That's
and then
cool.
also, if there's a collaboration of different characters in one shot, then they all have an homage to them as well. But also, we're doing a lot of forecasting and foreshadowing and foresight by having a little bit of the color that's about to appear in the sequence after, in the sequence before, or vice versa. You're kind of hearkening back to the sequence before that, to the sequence that you're in now. And so we call that color blending or color styling. And we actually went through a lot of DI with our colorist, Mitch Paulson, who is over at, he's over at Picture Shop now, but he was at Company 3 before Picture Shop. And he was very much a partner with me in the DI process, which is called digital intermediate, where you're doing like the post color grading. But actually, ILM's Alex Fry and his team, Fraser Churchill and all those guys were matching the lighting almost there at ILM. And we had very little to do. It was mostly about values, making sure the specularities and the lens flares, the eye trails on Megatron, which was an idea that I added in an illustration that Josh was like, cool. I fucking want that in the movie and I want it right now. You know, and it was just so cool to have chats with the team at ILM so early on about how the color was supposed to make the characters feel a certain way and the audience feel. Because I'm a firm believer that, yes, form follows function, but form should follow emotion. And if you can make an audience feel something first and then react later to what the design is, then you've done your job as a production designer.
That's really interesting. Funnily enough, Alex Fry from ILM has been in my Instagram DMs. We've been chatting a little bit as well. He's
cool.
Really nice. Yeah, really nice guy. He's got nothing but nice things to say about you, by the way. I mentioned that we were chatting with you. And he was telling me, he was telling me about the Megatron tears and this kind of stuff. And he's obviously really excited about some of the kind of nods and things that are included in the film and that kind of stuff. I mean, it really does show that it's what you were saying, that, you know, there's a lot of people that are just fans of the franchise that are kind of pouring that love in.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, for me, certainly that's why I think we've all kind of resonated with it as well, is because you feel that when you're watching it.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I think you guys are making me excited about the fact that animation will hit every single avenue of ages too. And
I think so.
You know, I think for me, I'm speaking to my own little kid inside. Like I never, as an animator, as a filmmaker and an animation designer, you don't allow yourself to grow up. You do that on purpose. You want to make sure that you're speaking to your own inner voice as a kid.
Yeah.
So that the current generation of kids will be left in wonder.
That's a nice way to look at it.
Do you know, it's when I was there's a few things that happened at the cinema. One thing that happened at the cinema when I was going to book is that I was quite early booking for the viewing, but there was 3 Uber fans that were right at the front already. So I was very proud of them, and they stayed right until the end as well, which was lovely. But I'll be completely honest, Jason. The last time I felt that nervous about seeing a film was when my degree film was on at the cinema. And I felt so, because we talked to Josh and Lorenzo, and I love Transformers, but also because my son was going to go and see it, and I felt so invested in this, right? And just like, so I can't imagine what you guys are going through. But I think that's what it was, is that because I'd seen it, and because it had so much heart, and like Sixo was saying, it had so much emotion in it, and this is what I love about Transformers 1, is that the pupils, the eyes, I keep coming back to the eyes, right? But they are probably the most important part of that film, because, and on that kind of final rendered version, with all of the work that you guys had put in, I was drawn right in, and that change, and I don't know how you guys, like Sixo and Liam, feel in seeing it now, but it drew me in even more than on the first watch, because as Megatron becomes
100%.
Yeah, but just it had that real impact, that real emotion part of it. And I assume that allowed the animators to dive in as well and really get that character across. Would you say that's true, right, Jason? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Megatron and the eye color. That was something I pitched to Josh very early on about seeing him physically change. And one thing I will pitch to you guys as well, just so you understand, Liam and Sixo and Jason, is like, I wanted D16 to be the biggest change in the film, obviously, because he becomes Megatron. And then, Optimus Prime, we knew that was going to happen. But Megatron was the one where we wanted not only to physically see it, we wanted to also make the audience feel it without feeling it. And it was going from the yellow eyes to the orange eyes to the red eyes.
Yeah.
And my idea behind that was that the yellow was the toxicity and the poison of the lies that were being infused into his mind by Sentinel Prime. And if you look at Sentinel Prime, his color is gold. It's yellow.
Of course.
Yeah.
So he's been poisoned by the yellows of Sentinel's color. And as he wakes up, there's an awakening that happens in the second act when you see him in the crashed Quintesson ship where the Royal Guard is. I wanted his eyes to start to like flare in that scene, and it didn't make its way into the movie, but Josh wanted the eyes to change to red when he says, "No, I want to kill him." And he wanted the eyes to flash red, like that kind of like, crazy ass like Lord of the Rings moment where he's obsessed with the ring, Bilbo. He wanted to do something there, but it got too crazy. We were like, no, let's wait.
Pull back a little bit.
The scene where he chokes out Starscream, and Starscream loses his original voice and becomes Starscream we know now.
Yeah.
It was so amazing, like seeing that transformation when everything kind of slows down, and then you do the sort of dolly zoom on Optimus's reaction, and you feel his pain that in that second he lost his friend. And before he can go to protect and save his friend, you get that attack of all the trackers coming in overhead, and Arachnid does her like John Wick moment, and takes everybody out inside the...
Yeah. It's a really cool moment, honestly. But I love those beats because they were the moments for me. I mean, as you said, the bit in the cave where he says, "I want to kill him," there was complete stony silence in every time I've seen this film. It's been the same reaction of just like you can hear a pin drop, and it's one actually of, I would say, several points of that. And then the cannon moment with Starscream is just incredible as well.
So good.
I really love that about, and I wanted to ask you about Megatron's design, or D16 in particular, because as you said, he's the one that kind of goes through the biggest change through the film. And to me, particularly in this last viewing that we saw over the weekend, I really kind of became aware. And it's interesting that you said you almost wanted to feel stuff without really being aware of it, because I think that's kind of how it was for me the first time or two. But now obviously I'm kind of looking more at the little details and things. And you become so aware that actually he's gone through this huge physical change with the cog. He's suddenly bigger and whatever else. And I love the way that you use that kind of physicality to sort of almost signal the fact that he's gone through quite an emotional change as well. And the cannon erupting even is kind of it's like a manifestation of his rage at that point. And that it's physically altering him. I thought that was super cool, and I guess I just was interested to hear a little bit more about kind of how some of that came about.
There's a cross section sort of anatomy of a sequence for the Academy that Josh did. I don't know if you've seen it, but he talks about that sequence and the visual hierarchy that happens. At first, we wanted to have Starscream on his throne and looking down and sort of the surveyor of his space. And Josh pitched this idea to me very early on. He's like, I want it to feel like Apocalypse Now at this point of the movie. I want it to be where he goes up the river and you finally meet Colonel Kurtz in the heart of darkness. And this is the moment when he loses his mind. This is sort of the sway turn moment. Yeah. And even in the DI, like I had Starscream fully shrouded in darkness, and then he leans forward and he's looking and surveying the room. And I was like, awesome. So we pushed depth of field there way more. If you notice that in the film. Yeah. I even pitched to Chris Batty, let's go really shallow with the depth of field on Starscream, so that when we get into D16 and he turns around with all the, Decepticons around him, you're like, whoa, like this dude is a beast. And also once he gets his his cog, when he changes from, his original D16 form, and he has the IDW sort of black helmet on, and then he gets his upgrade, he goes silver again. So you're getting a foreshadowing of him becoming Megatron. And at the very end of the movie, we full on made it bright silver. So it feels like he's the iconic Megatron, right? Yeah. But definitely. Amy was so smart about shape language. We were talking a lot about, first off, I should bring this up. Josh loves Art Deco. That's one of his favorite, sort of design motifs. And in a way, Art Deco is sort of, if you really look at it, the ideology of the Autobot and the Decepticon logos.
Yeah, it's true.
We're hey, that's perfect for Igacon. And then what if we took, and this was my idea with my team, and one of my team members, Tim Kalick, was let's look at cassette futurism, because cassette futurism is a perfect homage to the 1980s.
Yeah.
And make a baby called Tech Deco, where you have the tech cassette futurism and you mix it with Art Deco. It's a remix. And that's what created the visual language for Icon and for the characters. And Amy was riffing off of all the Icon buildings and the stalactite buildings that we designed. And she started putting them inside the characters. So if you look closely at the characters' internal carapace, on their body lines, they echo the visual language of Icon, because they're born in a society that's basically become part of their DNA. And my idea that I pitched to Amy is, as they get older, as they transform, as they get their transformation cogs, they add more panel lines to their faces, and there's more panel lines on their bodies. And so they're kind of aging gracefully in the film through panel breakups. So they're very simple in the very beginning, but they're very textured and sort of beat down by their environment. And as they become shiny new cars once Alpha Trion has given them their transformation cogs. Yeah. At the very end, they're in their final form. And so they're brand new. They're the most badass they can possibly be in the movie.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was almost kind of quite rewarding to see them so shiny and looking so kind of totally new, as you say, at the end of the film. I don't know.
Collector friendly.
Yeah,
it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's I want that toy.
Really sort of responded to that. Yeah. They become very toyetic by the end. It's fair
they really
to say.
do.
So,
yeah.
Also, automotive, I love cars. I'm building a classic Datsun in my spare time.
Nice.
Oh wow!
Which Datsun are you building? What is it?
I have a 240 Z.
That is proper.
It's actually nice. It's actually a 260 Z, but which people don't usually know about. But I have the middle child of the two.
Amazing.
Ultimately, what I'm trying to get back to, and a long way of saying it, is I had been picking custom wheels for the car and paint, and I have designed cars for the movie Ultraman and as well as the movie Turbo for DreamWorks. I'm obsessed with cars. Anyways, when Josh said, put some metallics on this and make it feel like a new car, I knew exactly what shorthand he had for it. And I was like, let's make them look brilliant, And I don't know if you noticed, but there's this streaking effect that's on the characters. They're like vertical lines. We call that line decker. And it's an homage to J.C. Leyendecker, who's a Golden Age illustrator that Josh brought up to me. Josh is like, I love that guy. If you can figure out any sensibilities that Leyendecker does in his illustrations and incorporate them into the characters or the world, please do.
Wow.
And so I had this idea that I pitched to ABC, our character designer. I said, hey, Amy, what if we put some strikes and some lines on the characters' bodies? And so we, on the Orion study head that I posted on Twitter, that's the paint over that we did together on the characters. And that was when we found it. We were like, that's it. That's the look for the movie. And then ILM gave that to their look dev team. They went away for, I don't know how long. I would think it was a few months. And then they showed us their first turn. And I thought it was actually a still. I thought it was our paint over.
Wow.
And and all of a sudden it started to rotate.
Oh, wow.
And I was all gasping. I audibly gasped in the meeting. And they're like, good. We got him.
We got it. Yeah, amazing.
There's a shot of Sentinel Prime where you see his chest, and that's really noticeable, and that's really cool visual language. And I thought as soon as he starts moving, you start seeing it on the other side. You're like, oh, that's right. Cool, as it's going across his chest. And
that wasn't easy. ILM Fraser Churchill, our VFX soup, worked very closely with the comm team and with the lighters to make sure it showed up, and it was something that Josh wanted to see. And I became a little annoying with ILM at one point because I had gone through the whole movie so many times. I'm like, there's no Leyendecker here, guys.
It's consistency. That's it. Yeah,
totally. That's okay. They were such good sports. They were great.
It sounds like you had quite a lot of I don't want to say free reign, but like there was a lot of room for creativity though. I mean,
yes.
Obviously with a film of this nature, you know that obviously there's going to be toys made of it and that kind of stuff as well. Was there much kind of input or liaising with Hasbro or like any of the kind of designers in that as well? Was that a consideration?
Very much so. I met with Hasbro every week. I actually had a design call to update them on changes that we made for the film. As you probably have noticed, even like the Energon axe changed color in the process of making the film.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Because all the toys are blue, so...
Yeah, because Josh was like, hey, let's try cyan this time on the inside and then red on the outside. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. That looks cool. And, honestly, I love when we get those challenges to try something new and refresh the technique. But at the same time, we also learn something in that process where sometimes the original way is the right way. And, when we went back to the orange and the ultimate ending of the film, I knew the fans would know what's up. Like, they would be like, okay, like they were paying attention. There's some fan service here. And I love that, I love that process of at least trying it and like baking those ideas out and seeing if they proof properly. Because sometimes, you don't let them proof long enough and then you bake them and then they're underbaked or they're overbaked. So, those are things that you have to think about and be considerate to the viewers upon. And thank you for saying that.
I guess you want to be referential and respectful, but equally you can't just have sacred cows the whole time, right? Like you've got to be able to have your own creativity and your own input.
Make something new.
Well. Yeah, exactly.
Spin on things.
I was just going to say, I think the film succeeds in that, though, in bringing something new to the fandom. And that's the main thing that I was thinking just for TF1.
Oh, thank you. And one thing I wanted to add that I feel like I needed to see on screen that Josh would let us do. And what I love about Cooley is we would go into meetings and everyone had a voice. And that is so ridiculously rare in animation. Right. Usually it's the director's word and you just follow what the director wants. And then there's no space to sort of add to the pie. And Josh was like, hey, no, like seriously, like once we have a screening, let's talk. Let's go have lunch or have coffee as a team and just start talking about the movie. And I think it's kind of the Pixar way in a weird way. Like he has this old school kind of like thinking like the Pixar mind hive, where you're sitting in a group and you spitball ideas out until something deserves to be there. And I love that kind of thinking when it comes to storytelling and filmmaking.
That's really cool.
Because you're going to get the best representation of what deserves to live. And beyond the screen, people will think about and it will resonate with them. And I learned a lot by that process of just like a good example, Train to the Surface. When they're all battling inside the train with Alita, and they go up on that vertical shot and they're going through the city. That was an idea that I pitched to Josh about how it would feel inside that space, as well as when we get to the surface and the sun is rising. I had this idea that, hey, this is the call to adventure. This is the moment when they're crossing the threshold and they're literally like visually weaving the needle down out to the surface and they're seeing the surface for the first time. So I had this idea that the sun should be like a giant vaporwave sun from like the 80s.
Right.
So I did that painting that I posted of the vaporwave sun. And then Josh is like, I love this. The only thing it's missing is I love to have the ground be fully reflective. And so I did a version where all the like aurora and the star systems and solar flares up at the top would reflect equally into the ground. So it just felt like this endless mirror. And I pitched this idea of this rainbow obsidian because it's a metallic obsidian that would actually have this like rainbow swirl through it. And it, we didn't want it to be garish and we didn't want it to feel over the top where you're like have a clown fart, but we definitely wanted it to like make people feel wonder and magic without being overly like drowned by the saturations of it all, if that makes sense.
No, I think you totally get that sense of wonder.
You do.
You absolutely do. I mean, we have to talk about Cybertron, because ever since the first trailer, I've been fascinated with the look and feel of this planet that you guys have come up with, because well, it's like nothing else really that we've ever seen of the planet. I mean, obviously you're big fans of the G1 cartoon, and Cybertron has had many different interpretations over the years.
Right.
But this is really unique in a lot of ways. I mean, the one thing I will say is that some of the organic elements gave me sort of major Beast Machines vibes, and I don't know if that's something you've seen or heard of. Beast Machines.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's not the first time I've heard that, and
right.
I didn't even know that existed.
Okay, that's interesting. It's a much, it's not the most popular series. Let's put it that way. Like it's an interesting one because when the first trailer was glimpsed, I was like, okay, like organic Cybertron or kind of organic, like that. That's basically where Beast Machines ends, right? With like Cybertron becoming techno organic.
Cool.
But it was a really divisive series. It was like, it's from 1999-2000. But it was like a really unpopular series. Like it really kind of divided the fandom. A lot of people have kind of come round to it now, but at the time it was so shockingly different for Transformers. It was yeah, exactly.
That's great.
It was following on from Beast Wars.
Yeah,
and it's so curious to hear that it's not something that you kind of had in mind because it was the first thing I kind of thought of at the time. But actually, what was so interesting about this is that haven't seen anybody really kind of like saying, "Oh, isn't it controversial that Cybertron looks the way it does?" Everybody's sort of accepted it, if anything, and I think it's just because it looks so good. I don't know.
I think it's also though. I'm wondering, Jason, as well, because it's organic, because it moves and grows with them as they're on the train, and it's when I saw it, I was like, this is the Cybertron I imagined, right? And the guys will know I am a very emotional person, right? But that scene, and it did again, brings me to tears every single time because it's just such a great flip in the action where they're battling, and then this wonderment, and it's like this.
It's true.
Beautiful childlike wonderment when they come out, and so like creating that vista, coming up with that concept. Like, did you go through multiple Cybertrons? Was this where you always knew you were going? Like, what was the process there?
That was my first painting. The one that in the movie was painting. As soon as Josh brought me on the movie, I was dreaming about that shot, and it was really crazy because I love jaggy, sharp rocks. Like that's just my thing. And I was like, how do we do it in a way where it feels like these breaking plates, almost like a conveyor belt? When you go to an airport and you're retrieving your luggage, there's like sliding plates on top of it. And I also found this ice lake that's like, it's basically a freshwater lake that would freeze over at a certain point, but the waves would still make these, ice shards kind of crash.
Totally.
And
it's cool.
It's so crazy because what would happen is they would slide over each other because of the wave formation. And so I found videos of these things in slow motion and sent them to ILM, to the effects artist and team. Brent Droog and his team looked at this, and I said, hey, what if we take the final form of that wave, which is what the rock ends up being, and then reverse it into the ground? And let's see if we can do some experiments in Houdini that can basically deconstruct those panel cuts. And he showed us like 4 versions while we were at ILM in Sydney. And he had this one, and I was like, holy crap, that's it. Like that's the one. Wow. And then he would break it down into smaller pieces or to larger pieces, fractalize it in certain ways to where it got almost like overly complicated in a good way. And I said, hey, how do we break it down just one less step than that? And they nailed it. And it was like literally 2 iterations. And because they are ILM and they are an effects studio, and that's what they're known for decades, they were able to chew on these assignments so quickly. And down to the hologram effects. They've done so many holograms for Star Wars. They have such an understanding of surfacing and texture and emissions and, atmospheric effects. And one of the things that, speaking to Cybertron, that I thought was extremely important was to have real atmosphere, real lensic effects. And Chris Batty, myself, and Fraser Churchill had early conversations about, the lens distortions that should happen. And we actually went really far with lens distortions in the very beginning. And actually, you should talk to Chris Batty too as well, our cinematographer, because we actually have 2 different lens kits for the movie, and you probably don't know it, but when you're underneath the surface, everything's a little out of focus and a little more dreamy. And then when you make it to the surface we take off all the lenses and it's just super sharp like a tack.
Yeah,
and so you're
interesting.
really feeling the sharpness and the definition increase as the movie increases. And it also tells you the story of the lie being sort of stripped away from their eyes too.
And of course, it comes into focus.
Yeah, when you meet Alpha for the first time and he's unburied from his rock and you see that little beacon in there, that's when you go, oh crap, like the world is starting to come in focus, but there's more atmosphere and particles, and I call them Ridleys, like Ridley Scott's, where there's like little particles in the air. And Ridleys are dancing around. That's the kind of Excalibur moment when you reveal Alpha Trion and he wakes up from his like great slumber of being in this tomb. I wanted that feeling to feel like the Excalibur moment for the film when you're awakening the sword and you're getting all that knowledge all at once.
Yeah.
And, I should speak to the truth. I don't know if you guys have talked about this at all, but I haven't even seen anybody even mention it. But holy crap, guys, like that particle sequence when they're telling the story of the primes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, right?
Yeah, I've never really seen anything like it, to be honest. And even, again, watching it yesterday, in the cinema, it was just really quite breathtaking, honestly. So, stunning work.
So good.
Do you know, the thing that I love about it as well, though, and again, it's my animator brain, but I'm looking at it going, that's someone's short film right there. And then I inevitably think how long it took to render it. But it is, like, it's just such a concise montage of explaining this moment. And that's both, like, amazing script writing at the same time as just those correct beats and all that. And then realizing that. And when it finishes at the end, it's just like, that's how it went. And it just collapses down. And, throughout this film, and we talked about this when we were chatting with Josh and Lorenzo, but throughout this film, I couldn't help but kind of look to the audience and see reactions and stuff like that and how engrossed they were and the moments that they were having as well. Even to the point at the end where when Megatron shoots Prime, that my son grabbed my hand in kind of disbelief of like, and it was like a proper emotional reaction as well. With this, I think that's the thing, Jason, right? That we're saying about Cybertron and you coming up with that concept of that world that's alive in my mind, that has got its own, Cybertron is Primus, right? That's the lore for us as fans.
That's right.
But it also is at that point menacing and kind of like, because it's coming at them, and it's like, it's got a life of its own, but it's kind of unknown and it's all new. And then putting foliage into it, as Sixo was talking about as well. Like, was there any point that, was anyone else in the crew kind of uncomfortable about that? Or was it always just something that's like, no, we need to have this? And we've got the little Bambis running around. That's what I'm going to call them. But our little Robo Bambis as well.
That was a pitch I did early on about the foliage. Josh said he did want to have, naturalistic, organic life. And so I pitched this idea that in the beginning of the movie, it's order versus chaos. So icon, order. Chaos is when you get to the Decepticon camp. And so I look at everything as simple, primitive shapes. Squares equal stable. And then triangles equal angular or active. And so when you get to the whole crazy, Decepticon camp, everything's sort of fractal and broken and sort of jaggy and sharp. That's when the Fury Road sort of comes to its crescendo. We call it the Fury Road. And when we got there, we wanted to make sure that the audience felt that was where Cybertron was damaged by these ancient asteroids. I pitched this idea that these asteroids came and crashed down on Cybertron and that it's an ancient, planet made out of Primus, but he's in his like sort of like isolated, like hibernating state. And so, at that point, and so these like crustaceans are starting to form on the outside of him, and the abundance of energon that is inside of him in the core is actually seeding the foliage and the plants. And so energon is actually powering the plant life, and that's why it's mutated. And Jerry DeJesus did this amazing package for the mouth of Unicron where they go into the tomb. And I don't know if you noticed that, but it's the mouth of Unicron.
Do you know, it's so funny because you just said it and it literally like a light bulb just went off in my brain of like, of course it is. But it's the first time I've actually made that that
busy
leap,
with
you know,
B-127 talking about massive
the cave
like,
with teeth.
The swords.
Cave with sword with teeth.
Cave
Yeah.
with teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
And,
Nothing scary about that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Jerry did this beautiful painting of the mouth of Unicron from a distance. It was like a vista shot. And then
That's amazing.
And then Yun Ling, one of our other artists that's an amazing visual development designer that worked with us before, did these paintings of the mouth of Unicron and had built a rough set. We gave it to another one of our artists, Josh Toninson, who built out the interior with Tim Kaylock. And these guys I'm not kidding you guys, we had a small ass art department. It was like 9 people, including myself.
Wow.
And we built the whole world together.
Wow.
We pre-built everything in Maya, handed it over to ILM, and then they finished it. But the reason why the movie was able to stay on budget is because our handovers were very clear and very concise and well packaged. And we had communication with APOP, our lead environment artist, the entire time, and Fraser Churchill, our VFX suit. And we had all these discussions so often and so early that they started to blend the realities of what we were thinking in this abstractive illustrative form and breathe it into life in the ILM department. And Chrissy Rose and her surfacing team, they lived inside that cave for so long. We had 4 sequences there. So they spent so much time developing the radium design of, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's this like kind of green, almost like radioactive reflective material in the rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they surfaced that like a real surface, but it's all hand painted. These artists were so incredible that they actually went in and hand painted every single element from machinery on Cybertron and architecture of Cybertron to the organics.
Wow.
And
incredible.
they like with brushstrokes and everything. And I'm hoping that once that Steel book comes out and people have that 4K and they pause the Blu-ray, they can look at all those like little attentions to detail and all the paint strokes, because it's all in there.
I will definitely be doing that. I've already been marveling at some of the 4K shots that are available online now, and I just think that I will say that from start to finish, I think the movie looks gorgeous anyway. Like it's
it really does.
Just visually, it's such a treat throughout, and
pops off the screen like nothing else, man. It's so beautiful to look at. Like when we were talking to Lorenzo, we were talking about how Cybertron, it's got this kind of the ethereal quality that you can't put your finger on, but you really feel it, and it's amazing. Just a stunning thing, and you feel like you're part of it as you are absorbing it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I feel like stylized realism is sort of the way to go. It's everybody goes hyper real. I don't like that word. I feel like stylized realism is the right way to say it.
Interesting.
Because it is stylized, but the world feels tangible and grounded, and you get a sense of decadence and celebration of golds and bronzes when you're an icon. And then when you go into the miner sector, it's a bit more like a mining living area where it's a bit more haphazard. And Josh was like, I don't want it to be Blade Runner. I don't want it to ever feel dystopian. Like, don't make everything gray. Let's have color in there. And so I looked at like areas in Tokyo, like Shinjuku, that like the red lights district, where the Don Quixote area, like where it has this like vibrancy to it. And we brought that love and attention to detail, because 80s neon, you can't beat it, right? Like that's
totally.
And then you go all the way to the surface, and then how do you make that area that's still really cool more vibrant as you go with big primary colors, where you take like the paint like right out of the tube and you splash it on the canvas and you're making these big brush strokes of color. And I wanted people to watch it and not know why they feel that like it dazzles them in a way where it's like, hey, I'm a kid again. I get to play with all my paintbrushes and my crayons and not like
it definitely has that quality. It's so true. I mean, the reds and the kind of pinky reds and stuff of the surface and all of that is really quite mesmerizing. And it's I don't think it's any surprise that became one of the kind of signature images of like the initial trailer and like some of the posters and things and the the initial images that were shared. And it definitely kind of gave this film a vibe that made it feel quite separate from what we've seen before. I mean, you obviously mentioned about when you came on, that the ideas were already to kind of have like a bit of an organic Cybertron. Was there any kind of like looking at what had been done with Cybertron in the past to kind of bring that in at all, or was it just kind of free reign and
totally.
Let's get crazy?
I love War for Cybertron. First off,
okay,
cool,
the design of the roads that were like forming in front was directly from War for Cybertron. Tim Kaylock like built that asset based off of what we saw, and we created a little bit more of a functional version of that, because that one was like had
really
little
cool
feet on it and like weird stuff. And then we had another version that was like really complicated and too fractally, and it like distracted from the characters. So we simplified it down to just a road. And I took his model and then I used Unreal Engine, and I lit it in Unreal Engine and then had like lighting on the sides. So it felt like it was alive, but not like taking too much of a presence. And so if you look at it from the sides during the race, you could see like glows happening off the side and like holograms forming at certain junctures and key points. But man, that was so much fun looking at like War for Cybertron. Another thing I really love about Transformers is the universe is so massive. There's so much to look at and be inspired by. So why not just take the best of, have like a 5-course meal of your favorite things and add them to the dish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was going to be one of my questions, actually. What was so out of all this stuff that you were able to look at over 40 years, from comics to games to toys to cartoons, movies, was there any bits that you worked on that didn't make it, that you were kind of like, oh, if only, is there like elements?
Yes, there was. There's one set piece that that one I fully designed myself, and it was the Friends fracture moment. And so, that moment when they get captured by the Decepticons, and they like kind of get skitzed out by the static. We had a whole other set there, and it was insane, and it was built by ILM. And it was the Royal Guard Outpost. We called it the Royal Guard Outpost, and it was this big fortress, like kind of like high up above Cybertron, and it was like basically like a giant asteroid has struck that area, and it like fissured out this big space, and then there was an outpost up on top of that rift, and it's split in half. And so we were literally going to have a visual metaphor when D16 and Orion were confronting each other before they get captured, of that big rift behind them. So we were going to do a visual metaphor of the rift. But we simplified it down because, and again, I'm sad that it didn't appear in the movie, but it was for the right reasons. Because Josh saved that set for the end piece when you wait to the end credits, where he's like, Decepticons rise up.
Oh, it's that. Okay.
And you don't see it very well. It's like covered in like firelight and sort of brimstone. But that set is there. We got a chance to use it, and thankfully Gerald de Jesus, I had been in Australia at the time, was like, "Hey, just pitch to Josh to use the set for the third piece at the end of the movie," and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so it didn't make itself in there, but it was more of like a backdrop rather than a set, piece. But I wish you saw it, because that thing was insane.
That's so cool.
Well, that post-credits bit is still one of the best-looking sequences that I think I've seen in Transformers media, honestly. It's just the colours and everything. I was just in awe of it. So, really, really lovely. I mean, are the bits there that, like, you would have held back for, like, a potential sequel? Like, if there is a sequel, obviously I know it's a big if at the moment, and, like, nobody knows, and, and you were to come back, are there, like, more ideas in the tank ready to go, or?
Oh my God, Josh has the whole second movie already outlined.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he's already talking to me, or spoke to specific aspects of things for the second film that are 10 times crazier and more amazing than the first film.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like.
It breaks my heart that it's not performing, because that's going to take a very long time to get there. Because it's going to be like probably put on the back burner, because the box office didn't justify the story, and we need fans like yourselves to keep spreading the gospel that this thing needs to be made, because I'm just patiently waiting for my chance to bite on Cybertron again.
I'll be heartbroken if we don't get to see more of the world like that.
Me too.
I really will.
I would be totally gutted.
It's a story, man. What more of it?
I'm already heartbroken. I already feel.
I don't know how you feel, Jason, but the whole kind of like the way that we kind of watch movies now and how we consume media has changed so much because of the advent of streaming and all that kind of stuff as well. And this whole idea that that US box office taking is an indicator of the success or not of a film and all this kind of stuff, because as we've talked about, those films, let's look at a classic, It's a Wonderful Life, absolutely bombed. It is now the movie that everybody talks about for a Christmas feel-good movie. But it bombed because of the time it came out. It was post-war, and it was not. People didn't want that kind of feels at that point as well. And I think I do wonder as well. We've yet to talk about this. We kind of want to do a TF1 post chat at some point as well. But with the previous films, with like the Bayformers films and stuff like that, and I'm in the same camp as you. I'm not a huge fan of those films. Yeah. But there's an assumption how TF1 was marketed, and it was quite heavily marketed as a kids film to begin with as well. And actually, you can be any age and go and enjoy this film. Now we know that because we've seen it. But even with, as Sixo was mentioning, talking to friends, I've got some friends who are Transformers fans, but they're not even aware as well. And I think this is a combination of, it's a bigger conversation, right, about how we consume, but because people are bombarded about so much stuff and they're picking and choosing about what they go and see and all that kind of stuff. But it's even like, we've got Wild Robot that's out there as well, which is getting a lot of love and stuff like that. But animated films, which always upsets me, they do tend to struggle a wee bit more as well.
Yeah, we're in a post-pandemic landscape right now. And the socioeconomic climate has changed immensely. Yeah. And having been in animation since 2006, like my first film I worked on was Kung Fu Panda at DreamWorks. And then I worked on Secrets of the Furious 5, which was like a straight-to-DVD special. It won a bunch of awards. It was an amazing project. And then after that, I worked on so many other films and watched this weird outsourcing evolution happen before pandemic. And then once pandemic hit, everybody needed content because they were at home, right? So they're like, oh, hey, like Netflix is like, let's just hire everybody. And literally like the entire industry moved to Netflix. And they were doing tons of projects, greenlighting everything. And then suddenly the world opened back up again. And then people were starting to go back to the theater and see stuff in cinema. But they had already adjusted to the idea of streaming. And so when you pay for a box office, think about it. When you take your kids out to watch a movie, that's $100. That's $100, like quid, that's good money that you're spending to go to the theater. And so now as a consumer, even myself, I have a hard pass mentality, and that was born by pandemic. So if I see a bad trailer, AKA our first trailer, then people go, oh, I don't want to spend my money, and I don't want to put my money where my mouth is at. And it breaks my heart because I know that there's films out there that deserve the love and attention that they do. But we now, as consumers, have to do our research. It's actually a new territory for us as consumers to go, hey, that movie's got great reviews. The fans are saying they love it. People that have seen it love it, regardless of whether they're fans or not. And give it a shot. Like, I go out and support all the animated media that comes out because I have friends that work in the animation, space and the landscape of it all. But what I'm trying to say at the end of it is it's all about our attitude and the way that we react to our world around us. And Transformers 1 is actually a really great wake-up call for the people that are out there that are consuming products. Don't overlook things that they are literally more than meets the eye. Like, it's a really amazing story made by really cool people. Josh Cooley being the one that I followed and really revere. And I have to give a big shout out to Aaron Den too, who's our real producer, the one that was actually in the trenches with us every day. Like, Aaron Den made decisions with Josh Cooley, and they were like in lockstep the entire time. Lorenzo was there, Mark Varadian, like all those guys really have been. They're like carrying the torch for so many years for Transformers, and people just shoot them down and treat them with so much disrespect because they're not making the Transformers movie that they want. We finally made it. We made the movie that everybody's been asking for, and then nobody went and saw it. So that pisses me off.
No, it's understandable. It's understandable.
It's quite wild because I've never seen it's rare you see a movie that's got such like love across the board from everybody seeing it. Praise from critics, and then it's like, why isn't it doing so well? But it is, like you say, it's the streaming mentality, isn't it? It's like a lot of people know, like, there have been quite a few films over the last couple of years that they've not done well or they've flopped, and it's not because they're bad. It's because people go, oh, I know it's going to be on Disney Plus or something in a month or two. And I think people automatically wait because a lot of things come out really fast. Like Beetlejuice 2 is streaming, I think, next week. And you're like, do you remember when we were kids, it was like you have to wait a year for it to come out on video or something.
Right. It was 4 months when you had to wait for it.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, is that I do think we can be a bit guilty in any fandom where, you know, it's just like, if something's getting a lot, everyone's going, oh, you should go and see it. It's amazing. Then people go the other way, like, don't tell me what to do, and this kind of thing, which then, so they miss out as well. And I've had a few friends that have said the same. It's just like, oh God, I feel like a pressure to go and see it. And then they've gone to see it and they've absolutely loved it, you know, and it's like, so it was that thing. And I've actually, you know, I mentioned to one of my team today, who's an old friend of mine, and he's an animator, went to college together. And I was like, have you seen Transformers 1 yet? As a bit of a joke. And he's like, I've not. And I was like, well, tell you what, why don't you just take 2 hours off work tomorrow and go and see it? Whilst I drive to Nottingham. So he's going to take time off tomorrow and just go and see it.
I love that, Jay.
That's a new rule. Everybody listening to this, let your team off work to go and see Transformers 1. That's what you need to do.
That's amazing. And also, like, man, big shout out to TF Hype Guy, right? Jeez.
Yeah, he
been,
is.
Ushering for all, and he's a very genuine dude and putting in that effort. And it's a weird tactic, but it worked. And I'm like, very impressed by the amount of people that followed what he said on Twitter. And Twitter is a very small demographic if you really think about it, but it's really nice to see some fandom being created from that and the sharing that he's done for us all. And I appreciate him a lot and what he's done. And you guys as well. I mean, you guys have been helping out a lot tremendously, so thank you very much.
I think generally speaking that there's a big sort of fandom movement behind this film, and a lot of people have really got behind it and love it. And again, it comes back to what we were kind of saying at the start, if anything, which is that, all right, the box office might be a bit soft and what have you, but the feeling for it is there, you know, the vibe for it is there, the love for it is there. And it's totally won over. As I said earlier, even people that were dead against it, you know, I mean, there are people that I spoke to when the trailers came out, when we saw it, who, you know, I sort of quietly said, "I know it's good." Do you know what I mean? Like kind of thing. And they were like,
NDA, Sixo, you know? NDA.
Well, after the NDA thing,
we all signed it.
Well, it was when we were able to finally say, okay, we really enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? And there were some people even then that were not convinced when we said, "Oh, it's good." Do you know what I mean? That they were still kind of like, not bought in yet. Do you know what I mean?
There was a tipping point that had to happen. Once it came out in the US.
Strange. Really strange. And then I think when the reviews started to pour in and it was like, oh, actually, this is phenomenal. You know, this is like a real, you know, this is a not just a good film, but like a legit great film. Like, you've got to go and see this. And I think the groundswell is there. It's just, as you said, it's a shame that's not necessarily translating to, you know, the box office completely.
Yeah, I'm also hopeful. I'm hopeful for it from the Blu-ray release, the 4K release, the streaming release, and the fact that, like, films, it's like I'm going back to that box office US thing, right? Is that films' longevity is more than just that cinema release and stuff like that. And I know that's what Hollywood look at and that's how they judge it and stuff like that. But from a fandom point of view, and when people really start seeing that, and I truly believe that it will get a groundswell of appreciation post that, which is the best reason that we could get a sequel in my mind as well.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic. My studio hasn't said anything to me. You know, I'm still at Paramount. And I don't know how much longer I'll be here because I know they were hanging on to me to be part of the sequel. And so it could be a couple weeks until they say, hey, sorry, the cord's going to get cut. Good luck. And so there's no talk of it. It's definitely on a hard pause until we see what the world says to the film. And that's why I say, if you care about something and you love something and you want to see it do well, you have to support it.
Yeah, true. Absolutely true.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
It's a good message. Yeah. So, well, I mean, needless to say, we loved it and we were totally blown away by so many aspects of this film. And, you know, your work on it, I think, is incredible, genuinely.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I credit all my team, honestly. My team, everyone on the visual development side, the team at ILM, all the animators and lighters, compositors, our DI team, like, everybody is part of this. And I can't take credit for any of that. The thing I will say is that they all believed in the vision that Josh and I had for the visuals, and they supported it wholeheartedly. And we felt so embraced by that connection and overcoming obstacles that were real big challenges. And that's one thing I really do believe about ILM is they will take any challenge and go, let's go head on and confront this and make it into a reality. And they did. And I'm just so excited for the world, more people to see it. And thank you guys for having me on to be a part of this. This is such an honor and a pleasure. And if you guys ever want to do a part 2 or have other members of the art department on the talk, we'd love to.
Yes,
I'm 100%.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Great. Yeah, it'd be great.
We'd be
great to get
to
yourself and some of the other team on as well. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Be well up for that, Jason.
Again, we're so grateful to you for giving up your time. It's amazing.
Always.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful.
Really appreciate
Thank you.
it. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. Well, that was Jason Scheier, so that was a true privilege for us. I mean, the man is a fountain of all knowledge, really.
That was amazing.
Massively passionate as well. He just loves what he loves, doesn't he? It was like, it was great.
And super lovely.
Yeah, so
super
nice.
Lovely.
So nice. It was like great. It was like, could have chatted for easily another hour. We'll definitely get him back on, right?
Yeah.
With more people.
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
I'd love to have him back on. We've been so blessed, really, with the whole... We've said it in the last episode, but like the whole Transformers 1 journey for us has just been such a thrill from start to finish, and we've met so many like lovely people through this as well. And one thing that really strikes me, everybody we speak to about Transformers 1 that's kind of even on the periphery of, you know, working around it, is just so passionate and just like lovely.
Yeah,
and it's no surprise that the film has such a nice vibe, I think, if you've got people like that working on it. So yeah, fantastic work.
It's a lovely crew, isn't it? Everybody, it seems like they all get on really well and work perfectly together. It's like the kind of lightning in a bottle where you just get like a group of people who just work seamlessly together.
Yeah,
so true. And I know I just said this to you guys when we were off pod there for a second ago, but it really felt like chatting with Jason that you're meeting someone that like is doing exactly the job that they were kind of, you know, meant to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
His level of knowledge and experience and everything is just, it's awe-inspiring, actually.
It totally was. It was the fact when he said about Cybertron, he's like, yeah, it's the first painting I did. And he just knew.
Oh,
and it
man.
was like,
imagine.
It was brilliant. Yeah. And I agree with him. Go and see the film.
Yeah, go and watch it. If you haven't, what are you waiting for at this point? Just go and see it.
Absolutely.
You've got nothing to lose. But otherwise, maybe you want to hear more from us. I don't know, maybe you've not heard enough tonight or whatever it might be. So you should go and check out our Patreon, because we do have a bit of a Patreon, don't we, gents?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got all the tiers.
It's pretty exciting. It does have a lot of tiers. It's got 5 glorious tiers on there.
Tears for Fears are on there as well.
Oh no!
Did you just say Tears for Fears? Oh my god! I actually quite like that. I'm going to let that one go. That's pretty good. Tears for Fears. Very nice.
Everybody wants to rule the world, so you know. Right, we might as well shout and let it all out about the Patreon.
Furiously Googling Tears for Fears songs now, you see, so that I can... there we go. Something about Head Over Heels.
That's a great song. I want you to know.
Yeah. It's all just a mad world to you, isn't it, Liam?
Something happens and I'm head over heels.
Anyway, so you can get more of this on our Patreon. There are Tears for Fears. There are 5 glorious tears, whatever. You can get access to early episodes up to a week early. You can get access to our Discord, which is the popping place to be, as we all know by now, especially Liam. You can get access to minisodes, fortnightly minisodes, where they're just like little wee condensed episodes on there on a range of topics, often to do with Transformers and occasionally other toy lines. And of course, you can get our top tier with our mini series, which is like a range of ongoing topics, including everything from Titan's Return, which we're talking about at the moment. We've just done one of those. Skybound's Transformers comic series that we're doing an ongoing chat on. IDW's More Than Meets the Eye, which we're rereading, which is really exciting, or reading in my case. And of course, the legendary one and only Tatman with Liam discovering, well, not discovering, telling us about Tat.
You guys are discovering. I am.
Yeah, we're discovering.
Introducing to you these classic toy lines.
That's certainly one way to look at it. Actually, the recent
What did we do last time? What was the last one?
It
Was it X-Men
was
versus Street Fighter?
No, we've
it
done one
was-
since then. We've done another Batman. There was
Yeah, it was
another
on
Batman.
Batman.
Yeah, the
it's
Dark Knight
Batman's.
collection.
That was good. That wasn't
Yeah.
Tat either.
Kenner Batman. That was
good.
not Tat. I was going to say that
Yeah.
was good. That was not Tat.
Yeah, the Dark Knight returned for that one, didn't he?
He really did. Yeah, well and
Oh,
truly.
the Kenner toy line.
This is
Go
the
listen, it's great.
14th Tatman episode we've done, and I have thus far waited. I think so. Yeah, I think I'm right in saying
Why
that.
do I
Give or
always feel
take.
like it's episode 6? Every single one we do, I feel
I
like it's
know, man.
episode 6.
I don't know. We've done a few of them now, and I've been waiting that long for you to get to a decent toy line, and it finally happened. So that's
Whoa. Shade. There
I know,
are
I'm
some
only
good toy lines in there.
Hardcore.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking. There's been some
Barnet 6,
acceptable
that was
toy
good.
lines on there. Yeah, there's been some acceptable ones. And
Let's
there's
wait till we
been
do Mighty Max.
some
Maybe
proper
do Mighty
tat
Max,
as
yeah.
well. Some proper tat. So, but it's been fun. And you can get all of that on our Patreon at patreon.com/Triple Takeover. And we also have some new patrons, don't we, Jason?
We do indeed, yes. And we've got loads, actually. This is going to be a bit of swipey backwards and forwards with all of these. I'm going to try to do them in order from lowest tier to highest tier as we go. So we're going to start with Derek and Man in Pig. Hello, Derek. Thank you for joining. We also have Matthew Luke as well. You know, he's a Man in Pig as well. Then we've got...
What's happening here? Why?
I'm having to
Go in, please.
go through a very complicated list here. This is hard. Oh no, wait, I did it wrong because Jay came in at apologetic ramp as well. Oh no. Oh, and there's also the real Hibbleman who came in at apologetic ramp. Hello, the real Hibbleman as well. Now there is a Man in Pig here. However, none of us can read that.
Oh, wow. I've just seen... Yeah, what is
Because
that
that's
name?
in Korean, I think. What is that? Or is that... I don't know what that is. Actually.
I don't know. I'm going to... You carry on, and I'm going to try and...
Translate
try
for
and
me,
Google
please.
translate it
Live
for you?
translation
Yeah,
as we
I'm gonna
go
try.
here, team. This is excellent.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Now we're up to Sixo's butlers here. We've got Vincetta Taboada. Hello, Vincetta. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. And we've also got Luke
It's
Wiltshire.
like a radio host, doesn't
Hello,
he?
Luke.
Hello, thanks for joining us on Midnight Love. Call in.
Yes, whispering.
Long time
Right,
listener,
Wagner.
first time caller.
Now we're getting into the Gold Box Classics now. Seeker Heat. Excellent username there. That's a good one. The 20-Sided Theatre. Hello, 20-Sided Theatre. Andy Fitzpatrick.
That's an amazing name.
Andy Fitzpatrick. That's a good name.
Well,
And-
that's also a great name, but I was more
Yeah,
thinking
oh.
of the 20-sided theatre.
yeah, totally. And we also
It was
have
tremendous.
Andrew Nixon, who's coming at Gold Box Classics. How's the translation going, Sixo?
Hey.
Has that worked?
Well, I've got it. Now, I thought, hey, maybe I'll introduce this person. And then I just thought, I can't deprive the world of hearing how you're going to do this, Jason. So
Here we go.
Here it is. That's what it's been. It's Thai, apparently, I should say. It's a Thai name.
That was close. I wasn't close. Kuwara Kusakul is what I'm going to... Kuwara Kusakul.
Forgive us, honestly. We're not going to get it right, are we? Let's
Welcome.
be fair. Like, however,
my
but
tongue's
very,
a bit
very
rusty.
big welcome.
But that is a lot of patrons that have joined us there. So thank you all. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
Lots of love.
it's amazing. We've been
Yeah.
on a bit of a bit of a rise of late. It's fair to say. In between the Evan Brooks episode, Bob Budiansky, TF1 last time with Josh Cooley and Lorenzo, and hopefully, this one does well as well. But it seems like, I know we've been doing quite a few interviews recently, but it does kind of feel like that's been really vibing for a lot of people. And we've got more on the way. It's fair to say.
Are we going
got
to drop a little hint or an actual
I
name?
think we can hint, we can mention, because
Yeah.
actually, I think it's the next episode is Mr. Simon Furman. So that's pretty exciting. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Childhood hero that he
I
is,
know.
Looking forward to that one. We do have some other names as well. I'll leave the rest for now because there are plenty in the mix, plenty of names, and let's wait till we get dates confirmed for them, I think, before we tease any more. But plenty more names. We're going to have to do a regular episode at some point as well.
We do.
Just like
Let's
the
talk
three of
about
us.
toys. Yeah.
What even is one of those? We haven't had
I've forgotten
Yeah.
how. It's,
But like the Titanic gif, it's been 84 years since we did one of those or something.
exactly. Not to mention, I'm all hopped up and spoiled on the the delights of people like Bob Budiansky and Josh Cooley now. Like, I've got to talk to you buggers for 2 hours. And
I know, sorry.
Just settle for that.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, look at him, old famous Sixo over there.
Exactly. It's less enticing now.
We're beneath him now, Jason. We're beneath him.
That's true.
Well, in your case, that's normally true.
That was a height joke.
Wow. I'm average height. It's not my fault you're a giant.
Sorry. I mean,
we are your bodyguards, Liam, when we're at TFN. That's what it is.
It's like I'm walking around with 2 towers.
Yeah. I'd say you walked into that one, so it must be a low bar.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm going to get hate mail if I carry on. So
From me?
Yeah, probably. You send me hate mail anyway, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you get more now. You wait
exactly.
text messages later.
Normally complaining about the schedule or the organisation or something like that. I don't know.
More of that coming your way now. So
I'll look forward to that. So, but yeah, thanks again to Jason for joining us today. It's been great fun.
Thanks.
Go and check out our Patreon. Otherwise, chaps, where can they find you on the old socials? Liam, I'll let you go first if you want.
I'm not even entertaining.
What?
Whatever you're going to say here.
I'm not going to say I haven't got anything in mind.
I'm just going to take the high road as the average height guy. That's normally where you stand. So I will take it and say, I'm Toybox Soapbox, anywhere there's an at.
It's very good.
Go on then. Let me have it, Sixo. Come on. I can see there's some kind of... There's
like smoking.
He's got something brewing here.
He's got...
Yeah. He's proud of himself. He's like,
I'm not... No.
He's been thinking of this all week. You can tell. Look.
I have not. No. I'm just going to say I'm at 60TF. That's it. Go and look me up.
Oh, there we go. All right, okay then.
Yes, that's it. There was no nefarious, underhanded, whatever.
All right.
Suspicious. Cool. Got suspicious minds here.
No, not at all.
Caught in a trap.
Not at all.
Can't
very
walk out.
Innocent face. How about you, Jay Swags?
You can Google Jason Wagner and it'll autocomplete to Transformers. Hopefully.
So they can just find you at Transformers.
That's it now. Jason Wagner, Transformers. That's it. There we go. And then everything will appear.
I see your new last name now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's been great fun chatting to Jason, so big thank you to him again.
Thank you.
And,
the other one. Sorry.
Yeah, not you. And you, I should say. But if you have enjoyed this and you haven't yet heard our last episode with Josh Cooley and Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, then please do go and check that out as well. But otherwise, we'll catch you for the next one.